All right. How is everyone doing today? Good. Good? Excellent. Well, I am doing fantastic, except for I am from Texas. I grew up here, so I left Texas, and it was 60 degrees. And I showed up here, and it was a little bit cold. I was not prepared at all, and so I'm going to need your help. I'm going to need your help to think warm thoughts. Can we think warm thoughts? Okay, so I want you to imagine like a hillside. Sun is kind of getting ready to go down, but it's still warm. You got the bugs kind of doing their thing. So let's think about that. Help me kind of get in the mode of not being frozen. That's a little bit better. Now this is perfect weather for hunting dinosaur bones. You need it to be warm because you don't want to freeze. So just a quick show of hands. Is there anybody here who wants to be a paleontologist or thought about it? We got one, two, okay, cool. So that was me when I was growing up, and I got to go on my first dinosaur dig when I was 9, and I absolutely loved it. I continued going as I grew up, and I got into more of the prepping, getting the bones cleaned up and putting them together. In 2014, I led my first dinosaur dig, and this is can anyone guess? What does that look like? Tyrannosaurus, maybe. So this is one bone. This is a leg bone from an Apatosaurus, the big long neck, long tailed dinosaurs. So me and my wife continue to lead dinosaur digs and just go out and dig for fun. And then we also do prep and work with other creation museums to supply them with displays and gift shop fossils. So with all that said, I love dinosaurs. I'm glad to be here. And today we are going to talk about what the process is when you see all of these cool dinosaurs in a museum. How did they get there? What is the process of that? We're going to take a look. So we are going to cover fossil discovery, what it takes to find the fossils, fossil excavation, what it takes to dig up the fossils, fossil preparation, what it takes to get the fossils all cleaned up, put back together, and stabilized. Fossil replication, what it takes to take the fossil and make a copy of it. And then fossil display, the final actual mounting of the fossil. So let us start with fossil discovery. How do we find fossils? Now there are tons of fossils all over the world. A lot of them are marine fossils, like these. You've got fish fossils, shell fossils, leaf fossils, that kind of thing. We're not going to be talking about those ones specifically today. We are going to be talking about dinosaurs found in the western United States. Now you might be wondering, how do we find dinosaurs? What is the process of actually looking for those? Can we just go in our backyards, dig them up, or can we not? What does that look like? So this is the best way to start looking for dinosaurs. Geological maps. Now these have been put together throughout the years, different geological surveys, and each of these different colors is a different outcrop of rocks. And generally, you're going to find specific dinosaurs and fossils in these specific layers. So this is a good place to start, and then you have to find a spot to dig within that. Now, there are several different formations within that we're going to look at today. This particular one right here, This is called the Morrison Formation. It goes over 11 states and into Canada just a little bit, and we find a specific type of dinosaur fossil in this layer. Now, these formations, there are different ones, there are several. They can be miles deep depending on where they are, and different parts have different erosion, and that is how you get your different fossils that you find. So, we're going to find a spot in here, and we are going to look for some erosion. So, something like this, and you can see size reference, that's me and a couple other people up there. So, how in the world, you've got all of this massive eroded out place, where are you going to look for fossils? We're going to come to that. This is another example of something you may find where we found fossils in part of this layer. Or you've got something like this, where again you've got a person for reference. This goes down like all the way back there. It's massive. So in all of that, what are we going to do to actually find a fossil? So we start at the bottom. We're not going to start at the top. We're going to start at the bottom, and then we work our way up. Why is that? We are looking for things like this. This doesn't look like a bone necessarily just when you're looking at it. It looks like a rock. It kind of looks like wood a little bit if you look at the texture of it. If you look at the middle, and I'll have stuff here to look at afterwards, you can see the bone marrow. So you're looking for different things. It takes a little bit of practice to figure out what you are looking for. So you start at the bottom, like this, and then you start working your way up, looking for different bone pieces. So you find a piece. You are going to follow it up the hill, and once you find where it's coming out of, it can be in different places. For example, you may be up on a cliff with not a lot of room to work, or something like that. And when you find where it's coming out of, it's not going to look like a bone. It's still going to be pieces that are eroding out of the hill. You got rain, you got cold, it freezes, parts come out. So you have a crumbled up mess. That brings us to fossil excavation. Now, what do you think that looks like? How many people here have seen Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park? A few of you? Okay. So for the ones that haven't, I'm going to play you a little clip showing how a lot of movies will portray digging out a fossil. So let's take a look. Okay, so who thinks that that is how we dig out the fossils? Anybody? So yes, this would be beautiful if you could do this. It'd be amazing. That is not how it's done. Sometimes you will find fossils in dirt that is less hard to dig in, and sometimes it is basically like rock. So you can't just like brush it off. That's just not a thing. So we're going to talk about the two different ways that you can find fossil bones. You can find them articulated or disarticulated. Now what does that mean? So the first one, articulated, means that you have all of the bones beautifully laid out, but they weren't in sand, but it was like this when it was found. And you have most of the animal there, or all of the animal there, and it is just beautiful. This is how it died and then was preserved. The other way is if we have disarticulated. And this is what we're going to be talking more about tonight. Disarticulated means that you've got something like a jawbone next to a leg bone, next to a rib bone, next to a backbone, next to another backbone. And so if you imagine kind of like you take the dinosaurs, you take some mud, you take some dirt, you take some rock and water, you put them in a blender. You turn that blender on, boom. This is what you get, disarticulated fossils. So, here are a couple places that we are going to be looking at today where we have our disarticulated fossils. Now this is a site in Colorado. You can see there is the site, and here's a little bit of a close-up on that. We set up a little bit of shade because it was hot and sunny, and we could, so we might as well set up shade. This is a place in South Dakota, and we were digging on a cliff somewhere in there. To the left? In the center. Somewhere in there. Anyways, here's a close-up on what that looked like. So that is actually fairly wide compared to how it started. We had to dig all of that out and then dig the bones out with it. So we have our site and we have found our bone. It is sticking out of the dirt and it is crumbly, it is fragile, and it wants to fall apart. So we have to preserve it. And so there is a specific brand called PaleoBond that is designed for specifically stabilizing bones. And it is good because it's reversible in the lab, so if you accidentally glue dirt to your bone while you're preserving it, you can undo that and you can clean it up. And so they have stuff for bones, they have stuff for marine fossils, they have stuff for everything. So we get that, we get it stabilized. Now you may need to kind of cut out a little ledge for yourself to dig a little bit more comfortably. Once you've got that, it is time to find the edges of your bone. What do you have? And so we are going to start digging around, and as you uncover bone pieces, you are going to stabilize it, and then you are going to cover anything that you expose with aluminum foil to keep you from accidentally hitting it with a tool or accidentally knocking dirt over on it. These are actually some of the main tools that we use. We use a lot of small hand tools like knives, dental picks, screwdrivers even. And actually this is one of the best digging tools when you have soft dirt. You can take the end of this paintbrush, you can carve it into a little sharp piece, or relatively sharp, and you can carve away at the dirt, and what'll happen is, oh, you hit a bone piece? Well, the bone is harder than the wood, and you didn't damage your bone. So, wonderful tool. Sometimes you are going to need to remove a little bit more dirt, and so what you want to do if you're digging into, say, a cliff, is you're going to want to take the top off and dig down on the bone. You don't want to just keep digging in and dig a tunnel and then it collapses. That would not be good. You don't want to do that. I think that has happened sometimes. So take the top off, dig down. Sometimes just hand tools like this, even though they are bigger, they don't work. They're just not enough. And so you need to use bigger tools. And so you are very carefully taking off more dirt above. I think for this particular one, we had to take off like 15 feet to get down to the layer that the bones were at. And so carefully watching to make sure that we're not hitting anything, but that just needed to be done. So back to digging around our bone after we've gotten the top overburden off. We are looking for the edges, and we have finally found the edges. Now this is a small bone. This is a vertebrae, a backbone. You got the centrum there, and then the spinous process coming off. Now, something about disarticulated bones. They, again, are a jumbled mess. And so you are Also finding other bones, like here, you got a rib, you got another rib. And sometimes you get to the point where you're like, you know what? No more bones, please, just let me get this one out. This one wasn't too bad. It was only two things that were not in the way, but you can find some that it's just miserable because you have one bone stacked on the other bone stacked on the other bone. So this kind of shows, it's not really articulated, it's not really disarticulated. This shows how these bones were found. These are leg bones for a sauropod dinosaur. So you got the leg here, and then you got the feet here. And so you may be digging, and then you find this bone, and then you find this bone, and you're digging, and you find this bone over here. So these are what is called associated. They're not articulated, they're not really disarticulated, but they're not all like perfect. And so that is kind of how it looks cross-section. Using dental picks, because we are dealing with like very fragile things, if the dirt will allow, you may want to use a dental pick to look for pieces like this. Can anyone see there's something in there? Some people can see it at least. This is a tooth. And so it is very important to be careful and to dig slowly, and then also use your brush. Like dig a little bit, brush it off. Because you see how clean this is? If there was a bunch of stuff just piled on there, you would not be able to really see that. You probably would just smash that and then move on, and then you see a little piece and you're like, oh gosh, where did that come from? And then you don't want to do that. So, also, this is an option, is using something to sift your dirt with. And this can either be done in the field, or you can do this in the lab when you are preparing your fossil, just to try and catch any more of those little things. Cool story about this tooth. This was found in Colorado. So me and another guy were walking up the mountain, and he found this piece right here. And he was so excited, he grabbed it and he just, came back down and was showing everybody. And I'm like, are we sure there's not any more? So went up, and I found about that much of the tooth. We didn't find anything else, but that is something else to keep in mind. If you find a fossil, dig around a little bit, see if there's anything else, because there might be something else really cool. I mean, that was a cool find just like this, but hey, you got the rest of it. That is even better. Some of the other small things you can find, this is a tooth, just a little tip of a tooth that you can find carefully going through the rock and the dirt when you are getting it dug out. This is a shark tooth that we found. Very small, very easy to miss if you are not paying attention. This is really cool. This is amber we found. So again, look very, very closely. This is a small dinosaur tooth. Again, look very closely, pay attention. And this was the highlight of one of our digs. This is a claw, a raptor claw. And so that just goes to show the coolest things sometimes aren't the biggest. If you dig down, you can find, if they weren't paying attention, that's just easy, just over the hill, boom, gone. But they dug carefully and they found that. Now, it is also very important to keep records of everything you do. Make a grid, write it down, take pictures. This helps when you're in the lab and you're able to kind of look back and see what you did. Here's an example of a grid. You can see, okay, we found some leg bones here, we found some teeth here, we found another tooth over here, we found toe bones, and then depending on the site, so this is in South Dakota, where you have a bunch of disarticulated fossils. Some of the sites where you actually have an articulated or an associated bone, you can you can kind of piece together what direction was the water flowing. So how did this, it was buried and there was flood, yes, but how was it buried? What happened? Did it get buried and then ripped back up and then reburied? Or did it just get buried and stuck where it was? You can kind of piece that together if you have all the data from the grid. Now here you can see we are digging into a cliff, and so we kind of had to put together a grid where it was kind of a vertical grid instead of one on the ground like you would normally have. Okay, so remember we found the edges of our bone, and this again shows just a massive bone. So you got a rib here, you got a toe bone here, another toe bone here, some other bones over here. Miserable to try and get all that out. Sometimes you just have to put it all in one big jacket and not take each piece out individually. But when it comes to getting that dug out, you found the edges. Now you're going to dig down and hope you don't find any other bones. When you dig down, the goal is to go down about like 12 inches, depending on the thickness of the bone, and dig very carefully around. If you have a bunch of fossils with you, like so up here, you're going to try and dig around here. You got fossils here. You're going to dig in between very carefully, remembering to cover them up along the way. And then see, now we are starting to get a pedestal where the bone is up here and the hole is going deeper around it. And remember to stabilize your bone along the way. The next step, here you can see the bone is totally trenched around it right here. And they have started putting a plaster jacket on that one. And there is that one ready for a plaster jacket. Remember, keeping your site clean. That is super important. So dig, clear it away immediately. You want it to look pristine, pedestaled, basically just like that. And here's a top view. You can see here's the bone here. We've dug all the way around it. And here is another bone. The next step after you've dug around it is to start digging under it. Just a little bit, not too much. Because if you dig too far under it, then it is going to collapse, fall apart, and then all your work is just, it should not have done that. Here you can see we have two bones on top of each other. You got one bone here, they started digging around it, they found another bone, they dug around that bone, and we're going to remove all of this in one piece. So you can see here's what it looks like. You got to undercut just slightly, and that will help us with our next step. The next step is going to be doing a plaster field jacket. Now a field jacket is basically, has anybody here broken an arm or leg or something? A few people? Okay, so you had a cast probably. So this is basically a cast for the fossil. And so what you do, you protect it, make sure you get your tin foil over it. This one isn't quite ready to come out yet, so we cover that with plastic. And then you are going to take plaster of Paris and burlap strips. You're going to mix it all up and then start putting on there. Big cast. And then this one was so heavy we needed to add wood supports because it would have fallen apart with just the cast. It was that heavy. So, smaller jackets, they're fine. You don't need to have a wooden support on it. So after you've got the initial plaster jacket on, it is time, you're going to undercut the bone more because you've got it supported from the top. You're going to undercut it even more. So you're going to go under, and basically it's going to make a mushroom shape where you've got your bone here and then down and then under. And then after that, you are going to take this part, you're going to put more plaster. You want to like grip it with your jacket because if you don't do that and you flip it over, it will fall out. So you need to grip it in your field jacket. And then also, it is very important to mark the direction north, and this helps with gridding as well. So you got your direction, the site, when it was found, all of that. And then you also have, this is site of surfactants. Once you have gotten that, it is time to start getting the jacket ready to get out. You're going to hammer under it and then flip it out. Assuming you've done everything correctly, you won't have the fossil fall out of the field jacket. And then here we go. We've got the matrix that we're taking out. Matrix is a fancy word for dirt. You have the matrix here, and we're taking out extra because we don't need all of that weight in there with no fossil. It just makes it much harder to carry, especially with larger bones. And here you can see what it looks like with the matrix removed. So much lighter, much easier to carry. And then sometimes, depending on how you're going to transport it, you may put another jacket over that just to keep it safe while it is traveling. So, to recap, we find our fossil. It is sticking out of the hill. It is falling apart, and we need to stabilize it. Then we look for the edges. We find the edges, stabilizing along the way. We take it and we dig down, making a pedestal. Then we start to undercut it just a little bit, enough so that we can put our field jacket on. Then we put our aluminum foil over the bone, field jacket, boom, and then we undercut it some more, add another layer of field jacket, and then we roll it out. Now, after that, it is ready to transport. Now, in this case, in South Dakota, we had to zigzag it up the cliff, so that was fun, taking larger things up the cliff. And there we go, we are in a truck. Now, some other sites, you're going to send it down the cliff instead of up. Other things, other operations, I haven't done this, but some people that have dug, they'll bring a helicopter and they'll just be like, okay, here we go, we're taking this, especially for the heavy things that you can't lift up, that can be helpful. So we are going to do a quick video recap, kind of showing what it's like to be on a dig. And this is one from one of our previous digs. And so it'll just kind of show you what it's like to be on a dinosaur dig. So that was one of our digs. That was a very fun year. So that kind of gives you an idea of what a dig kind of looks like. And moving on to fossil preparation. So we have done all this work. We found our bones. We have dug them up. Now we have gotten them back to the laboratory. What do we do? So a laboratory is going to look something like this. It's going to be different for every setup, but you're going to have a lot of tables, a lot of shelves, a lot of drawers, a lot of stuff being prepped, washed, cleaned. You can have things like microscopes. You need to make sure you have good lighting because you're dealing with sometimes small things, sometimes big things. And this is where the grid really comes in handy. So if you have a complete animal, you're trying to piece back together in the lab where all the pieces are, what do we find, how complete is it, how was it laid out, what field jacket is what bone in. And so we have our grid, and being very careful, you can find things like this. This is dinosaur skin impression. And so you have the bone, and they found the impression of the skin. Some dinosaurs, they have found actual, like, not an impression almost, but it's almost like the skin. This is the negative. They have found the positive, if that makes sense. So they found this is an impression. The other one is they found the impression in reverse. And so those are very cool. When you find that, you can kind of piece together what did this animal look like, because we have, hey, we have this skin found with this dinosaur. He probably looked like this. So as we start to prep our fossil, imagine a dirty, fragile 3D puzzle. That is what you're dealing with. And it wants to fall apart on you. It does not want to stay together. So that is what we have. We have, this is a chevron, which was a bone that went beneath the tail. And you got all these different pieces, you got all the dirt. And how do we get the dirt off without damaging the bone? So there are several things that you can use. You can use a hand tool, like this dental pick. Dental picks are amazing. Toothbrushes. Toothbrushes are amazing. Knives are amazing sometimes. But you want to make sure that you're not actually like scratching your bone. Very cool tool that they have is called an air scribe, and it's basically like a mini jackhammer. And that is what we're going to see in this video here, kind of how that works. So as you can see, he's not actually touching the bone with it. He's hitting the rock, and then the rock is coming off. And so that is an excellent way to prep it without actually touching the bone. And then another really, really cool thing, once you have prepped your bone, all the dirt is off, that you can see, you can do this. This is a soda blaster. And so you've got baking soda that they are shooting at the bone. And what's really cool is baking soda is harder than the rock that is on the bone. But the bone is harder than the baking soda. So you can get microscopic detail from your bone just by shooting baking soda at it. And so that is an amazing finishing technique. The bones get really shiny, beautiful, gorgeous when you do that. So after you've got it cleaned up, now the fun part is gluing it back together. Here's where the 3D puzzle comes in. So some of the pieces you might not have, but the pieces that you do have, you can use tape to hold it together while the glue is setting up. You can use rubber bands. You can use gravity, depending on how big your bone is. Once it is all together, again, we have missing pieces. What do we do with all these pieces, cracks? Some people, they will just leave it blank, and you can just be like, here's the bone, especially if it's one that they're trying to study. That's a rare bone, they're going to leave it. But for ones that are more common, you're going to do something like this, where you have, this is a jawbone right here. They have sculpted in the missing pieces based on, well, obviously what is there, but then for like something that's totally like missing like half of it or something, you're going to look and see, okay, is there any other bones like this? Is this, so like this belongs to a dinosaur called Edmontosaurus. There are millions of them. We know what their jaws look like. We can sculpt in this little piece right here. Something else you can do if you do not have a whole bone, if you just have, let's say, one side of the animal, which is, I mean, getting a complete animal is very hard, so getting just one bone out of the two is very common. You can actually do something like 3D scan the bone and then print a copy. Or if you want to do it a little bit more old-fashioned, you can sculpt it. And so you can take and mirror basically, okay, we know this is what it looks like on this side, we're going to sculpt this piece over here, and we're going to make it match, just so that you have a complete looking specimen for display. While you are prepping it, you may take a look at something called pathologies. Now, pathologies are abnormalities in the bones. These can be growths, breaks, gouges, something that happened to the animal while it was alive, before it died. So, for example, this is the skull of an Edmontosaurus. You got the jaw up here, his eyes would be somewhere up there. This arrow is pointing to a T-Rex tooth, just the tip of it, that was embedded into the bone before this animal died. And you can tell that because it has started to like regrow around it. There are other examples here. This is, I think this is a Triceratops, and you have bite marks from a T-Rex on there. And you can tell it was a T-Rex because either there was teeth very close to where this was found, or like you take a T-Rex tooth and you put it like in the hole and you're like, okay, yes, this fits the shape of that tooth. Other things, this is I believe it's a vertebrae from a, what is that called? Dimetrodon. And it was broken and healed, and then they think it had some kind of cancerous thing with it as well. And so this is something very interesting as you're prepping to study the bones and be like, okay, wow, he had cancer, he broke his bones, it grew back. Just, you know, as you are trying to figure out more about the animal, maybe how it lived, this isn't as much how it died, but just it's cool to see all the different things in the bones. And then doing this can give us a better idea of just everything about the animal. And there's so much cool research, like these are different Triceratops skulls. And some people think, you know, are these all the same? Are they baby to adult? And there's different opinions, but a lot of it you can look at, figure out, and it is a very, very fascinating part of the prep process. That brings us to fossil replication. So we have our bone has been found, it has been transported, cleaned up, and studied. Now we want to make a copy of it because we want to share this bone with other museums, other people. What is the process on doing that? So we are going to look at how to make a mold. To make a 3D mold, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your fossil and you're going to divide it in half. It doesn't have to be exact half, it can be kind of a little bit, for example, this is, you know, wavy around it. And you are going to, so you'll build up a little thing to divide it in half, and then this is clay that we are putting around it. to divide it and make one part of the mold, and then you're going to come back and make the second part. You want to make sure that your clay is very smooth, and then this is like a tongue and groove locking system that it has. So after you have that, you put your molding material on. This one is latex that we use. You can either use like a liquid latex that will air dry, or you can use silicone, which is a two-part. You put part A, part B together, there's a chemical reaction, and that's much quicker. But if you have any latex in the area, it will not set up, and you don't want that to happen on your fossil. That has happened to someone I know. It was miserable for him. So that is, just something to keep in mind. After you have put all of your molding material on, it is flexible. And if you pour something into it, it will flex, it will deform. So you need to have a support mold, and so that's what that is here. This is basically doing another plaster jacket on top of your mold to hold it together. And I've got a mold here that we can look at afterwards, and I can kind of show you how that goes together. So you do the same thing on the second half, and then you bolt them together. And here you can see this is the start of the second half. We flipped it over, and you're going to take all of this clay off, and then you're going to put your molding material on, make your support mold, and then you are done. This is kind of like what the mold looks like afterwards. You can see all the different hollow cavities. This is for a Pachycephalosaurus skull. That is what that looks like. Now, if you want to do just a two-dimensional mold, this is what that looks like, where you're just molding the top and sides, and the bottom is where you pour your casting material in. And so that is much simpler, easier than doing a three-dimensional mold, and things like this, where you only have the fossil on the face of the rock. Super perfect for that. After you have your molds made, you can pour your casting material in. You can use whatever you want as long as it goes in liquid and then gets hard. You can use plaster, you can use plastic, you can use resin, anything that will go in and then harden. Then after it's hard, you pull out the cast from the mold, and then you can paint it. And some people paint it just very quickly. Other people will try and paint it like pristinely exactly how the fossil looked, and so I've got that one. I've got that right there to look at. And then you can make as many as you want to, and those can be sent all over the world for museum displays. They can be sent to people for collections, whatever you want to do with it. That brings us to fossil displays. Now that we have our fossils, either real fossil or a replica, how are we going to display it? So there's two ways. We can either display the real dinosaur bone, or we can display a replica. So what would it look like displaying a real dinosaur bone? Now remember, these dinosaur bones are fragile. They're not dirty anymore. They could be a puzzle if they break again. So they take a lot of care to actually mount a real dinosaur bone. So you can see this is the back of a type of Triceratops skull. You can see all the different steel supports, very carefully fitted, and it's kind of cradled in there. So a lot of the bones that you see at museums might not actually be real if you can't see all of their supports, because these are heavy, because they have been fossilized. So you got your supports here. It's set in there. It's screwed in. It's just massive. It's a very, very heavy, hard undertaking. You can see this. These are real fossils still, but this is actually a rib for this dinosaur. Here's his leg. Here's his rib. And this one they actually left in the field jacket. It wasn't the one that it was dug up in. They prepped it, and then they built a specific field jacket for it. Because it was so thin and because it was real, it can't be displayed any other way. The second way is to display just a replica. And a lot of museums, because dinosaurs, there are plenty of dinosaurs, but they are also rare. They're also expensive. And so if you have a really good specimen, you're just going to make a replica of it, and then you're going to send that to different museums. So this, you can see there is no steel really to speak of. You can see a little bit of pieces that are just coming up and kind of holding those. This is a replica. And so it is very easy to spot once you know, okay, yeah, there's no way that you're going to take the real bones and set them up in that position and just hope they don't break, because those bones are very breakable still, even though they've been stabilized. So also, something to keep in mind, keeping the real bones and making a replica, you can take the real bones, you can put them in storage. You can still see the dinosaur that was found, but you can study the bones. And so that is what they do also, is they will study the bones while you can still see the dinosaur. So we have come full circle. We have found our fossils, we have dug around them, we have prepped them, and we are back looking at them in a museum thinking, wow, this is awesome. I want to do this now. So we have learned how to look for dinosaur bones, kind of the process with that, how to dig up our very fragile 3D puzzles, how to stabilize our dirty, fragile 3D puzzles and clean them, how to make a replica and what the process is with that, and then the different methods of display. So as you go and you look at dinosaurs in museums, or you see pictures, you can maybe start to see the difference. Okay, this is a replica, this is a real one, this one has restoration, this one doesn't. And I think it's going to be kind of interesting for you going forward, seeing that. Do we have any questions? Yes.
On your grid, you had where everything was labeled.
Mm-hmm.
You had some that said tendons.
Yes.
You wouldn't think that you'd be able to find tendons because they would just decay.
Right.
So
the question was, on one of the pictures, we had on the grid tendons. So they're not, I think they technically are not tendons, but they were like support for the tail. And so you'd have them crisscrossing in the tail as a support. Yes, does that answer the question? Cool. Yes?
David, have you or any of your friends found any mummified skin of a dinosaur?
Okay, so the question is mummified skin. I personally, and nobody that I know has found any. They have found mummified dinosaur though. So that is a thing. I believe the best one was found in, I think it was Wyoming, the dinosaur named Willow. If you look up Willow mummified dinosaur, you can find a lot of information on that. Yes?
Going back to the shark tooth.
Yes.
Was that found in Montana?
No, that was actually found in Kansas. So Kansas, that was the one thing that was not actually in. That was in Kansas. They find a lot of shark, fish, they find pterodactyls, and then armored dinosaurs and chylosaurs there. Yes. Anybody else? Yes.
Dinosaur eggs?
Dinosaur eggs, what about them? I have not found any. They find a bunch in China. The Gobi Desert is the place to find dinosaur eggs. You need to be careful though, because they are very good at faking them now, because they found that, oh hey, these will sell. So Gobi Desert is a great place to find eggs. That's where they found a bunch in the past, but I have not found any, no. Yes?
You said you sell items to creation museums?
I do, yes.
Sell anything to secular museums?
Not really, no.
I was going to ask you to put a date on them BBC or something.
No. Yes.
Couple things.
Yes.
How common is it to find like a whole skeleton?
Very rare. So I don't remember the statistic on it. I can look it up, but I think it's something like 30% is considered complete. And that's hard to find that. So a lot of your dinosaurs are going to be composites, where they've either found enough of the dinosaurs of the same size where they can put together a whole dinosaur, or they found one dinosaur so they know what it looks like, and then they can either sculpt the rest or composite the rest.
And what's a shark tooth doing in the millimeters?
That is a very good question. So if you were to ask an evolutionist, they believe that there was a shallow inland sea. And that is how we got all of our marine fossils, because it's not just shark teeth. They have fish, like 6 foot, 20 foot fish.
Giant cephalopods.
Yes. So obviously that would be not a problem if there was a flood, to have marine fossils there buried. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Why don't you go over the age of the dinosaurs?
The age of the dinosaurs. Okay, so we believe that dinosaurs are, the fossils we find are about 4,500 years old, because there's a lot of reasons. But for one, the layers that they're in, there is no erosion between the layers. And so if you were to have a long time in between layers, there would be erosion. We find anywhere you go, all of these giant rock layers are flat. Layers are flat. And there's no evidence of any time in between those layers. And so that's
Like your picture.
exactly, yes. Yes, we have flat layers. There's no evidence of anything eroding. And then you have an ecosystem that comes in, and then it buries again. There's just, anywhere you look, you don't have that. Yes?
So, I've heard like Dr. Mark Armitage talk about like finding red blood cells. And
Yes.
like, them decaying, like still a little bit decaying. Do you do anything to like maybe help stabilize it from maybe that decay process, or do you not worry about that?
So that has been a new thing that is coming out. So I have not done anything specific to try and preserve that. Although a lot of these fossils, if you think about it, they are sitting there, like some of them like on the surface, and they are finding soft tissue on ones that have been sitting on the surface with rain, sun, winter, summer, all of that on it. So, I mean, what more can you not do to preserve it? Really cool thing though, they're doing more research on that, and they think they found some soft tissue in a trilobite. So that's really cool. That I just heard about that. So, yes.
Have they ever found any human bones in this layer where they find the dinosaur bones?
Okay, question is human bones with dinosaur bones. To my knowledge, no. They have not found any human bones mixed in with dinosaur bones.
Is that because dinosaurs are older than humans?
No, that would not be because dinosaurs are older than humans. It basically, leading creationists, geologists believe that the way we see the fossils laid down, where we've got specific dinosaurs in general, in specific layers, is you have different ecological systems being buried. And or humans were smarter. They outran the dinosaurs, and they knew how to swim. They knew how to get, okay, we're going to make a little raft, whatever. And so they would have been the last ones to die in the flood. And if you have something that has died and is on the floating in the ocean, bones are going to float to the top. They're probably not going to become a fossil, because to become a fossil, you have to have your bones buried quickly and deeply. Otherwise, it's going to decay, is not going to become a fossil. Yes?
What was the name of that layer that you typically find them in?
Which ones?
The dinosaur bones?
So there are several different layers.
Okay.
There are several different formations. So the one we were talking about, the one in Colorado, that is the Morrison Formation.
Okay.
The one that we find dinosaurs in, or one of the ones that we find dinosaurs in, is the Hell Creek Formation. And that goes in Montana and South Dakota, and there's other places where it is too. And you can look up a geological map and look up, Hell Creek, Morrison Formation, all of that, easily accessible. Yes?
Are insects ever found?
Yes.
The Jurassic Park whole seal.
So they do find insects in amber, so that is a thing. They probably have found mosquitoes, I'm not sure. They also find insects in rock layers. And so you have like little super fine slate, and you've got you can find little flies, mosquitoes. They even found a frog and a bird in there. So yes, you can find insects, and really cool ones, or one at least that they found is dragonfly with a 2-foot wingspan. So that, you've got really cool things that you don't have now, or you have them now and they're smaller. Any more questions? Yes?
When's your next dig?
When is my next dig? That is a good question. Potentially next year. We are working on finding some different sites. So we don't have one lined up yet, but we're working on that.
What determines your site availability?
So we work with private landowners. And so we have to find a spot that actually has fossils on it, and then we have to find a landowner who will work with us. And so if you find both of those, and then depending on the dig, if you have a dig that is, you're just in there to get the bones real quickly, and it's like a commercial kind of dig where you get the bones, you get out, you prep them, and then you get them to a museum. That's different than if you have a family dig, which is some of what we've done in the past, where you want to have bones that everybody can find. It doesn't have to be the best, but everybody's going to find a bone. And so finding all of that can be tricky. Yes?
What was your most impressive find?
Most impressive find? Personally, or on any of the digs I've been in?
Personally.
Okay, that femur. That big sauropod femur, that was probably my favorite.
Were there other finds along with that one?
Yes. We took out probably 30 field jackets in 2 weeks. It was, there's just a ton of bones. Has anybody been to Dinosaur National Monument? No? Yes? A couple. Okay, so basically, you can look it up if you'd like to. They built a building over this cliff, and in that they have a huge, just bones everywhere. And it was that same layer that we were digging in. And so it was that same kind of thing where you had bone on top of bone on top of bone on top of bone. And to get those out, it took 2 weeks of getting all the other bones out first. So, yes. Any more questions? Yes.
Just out of curiosity, where do you think some of those dinosaur bones originated? If you were plotted out on a map or a region, do you think they were here in the United States at the time, or were they transported from another spot?
Definitely here in the U.S. Yep. And you do find different dinosaurs on different continents. So it may be the same. They're doing some studies looking at geological core samples where they found you have the same layer going across different countries, but you have different dinosaurs in each layer. And so, like T-Rex, I think that may be almost exclusive to the U.S. And then you have different variations of other dinosaurs in different places. Yes.
You talked about your journey into your career. What about your wife's? Did she have a parallel?
So she actually went to college for weather, and then she got into geology from that because that was part of the class that she had to take, and then we ended up working at the same museum together, and then just kind of getting together and going forward that way. Anybody else? Hi. Yes.
So dinosaurs became like extinct at different time periods, is that the different levels?
So that is the different ways that they were buried. Because we do have different dinosaurs buried in different rock layers. And so I believe not different time periods, different ecological zones. So you have, let's say, alligators, they live in Florida. We're not going to find an alligator here. So you have different types of dinosaurs that lived in different places and probably ate different things. Maybe the climate was a little bit different. And there is, you can have some mix in the burial, but in general, you're going to find specific, like you're going to find Triceratops, Edmontosaurus, and T-Rex together. You're not usually going to find those in other layers. You're going to find Allosaurus, Apatosaurus, and Stegosaurus in general in the same layer. You're not usually going to find a T-Rex in that layer. But again, with the rock layers, there's no evidence of there was a whole different world going on after these were buried, and then that got wiped out because you have no erosion between the layers. Yes?
So that big bone that you found when you were 14.
Yes.
What's the story behind that? How did you find that?
So that was a site that had been dug on for several years, and we knew there were bones there, and so we would just go back every year and dig. So it wasn't we were walking along and we found it. It was we know there's bones here, we're going to go dig, and then that was just one of the bones we found. Anybody else? Yes.
One more.
Yeah.
What is the most commonly found?
Most commonly found depends on the layer and location. So, for example, the Hell Creek Formation, that one I've dug in Montana and in South Dakota. In South Dakota, the dinosaur Edmontosaurus, super common, super easy to find. In Montana, it is Triceratops. Super easy, super common to find. And in both places, a lot of people don't care if they find those fossils. There's this one rancher I know that they have enough land. If they find a fossil, if it's Triceratops, they treat it like an experiment because they have enough land. They're going to have a T-Rex on it. And so they're like, okay, we're just practicing for the T-Rex. Let's see, let's push down this Triceratops skull down the hill and see what happens to it. So there are different dinosaurs everywhere depending on location.
And that explains why you said it depends on the ecosystem.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Yes.
Did they find different types of animals along with dinosaurs?
They can, but again, it is usually, you do usually find just dinosaurs with dinosaurs. And like mammals, that kind of thing, usually are in a separate layer. Yes?
So being the ocean so deep, you can't get that far, so you think dinosaurs would be that in a layer or that.
There could be, yeah. There is so much unexplored that, yes, there very well could be dinosaurs in the ocean, dinosaurs in the jungle, Places where they would thrive would be the jungle because they need a lot of greenery, they need warmth, or yes, in the ocean there could be. Yes.
How about those that are found through mining and, with big equipment, you come across something? How often does that happen?
Very often. So the question was finding fossils through either mining or a lot of it is road construction. They'll, and most of the time, they don't have time to stop. And so they just keep going. Sometimes they will call somebody that knows something and they will come and dig it out. But a lot of times they're just like, just wood. And then you got the construction guys like bringing bones home and like, oh, look what I found, it's part of the skull. And so that is a thing that happens a lot. And that can be dinosaurs, that can be here in we're not in Texas. In Texas, mammoths, mastodons, that is a lot of the fossils you have for some parts, and they'll find a bunch of those doing roads. Or they also have like giant salamanders, giant alligators, that kind of thing, and that's in another part of Texas. Anybody else? Yes?
Why is there such a doubt about that?
Why there's such a what?
What's the controversy? Why is it such a doubt?
Controversy about what?
That dinosaurs real or not?
That's a good question. I don't really have a good answer for that because I don't know why it would be a controversy. Because I have gone out and dug up dinosaurs, like we have dinosaur bones right here. Like, why would it be a controversial thing? I guess some people, if they don't understand the science, they haven't properly taken the time to learn, they might think, okay, I guess one of the arguments is Satan put dinosaurs in the ground to deceive Christians. But that would only be a thing that you would say if you don't understand how science and the Bible work together. And again, I don't know why or how you could arrive at that conclusion without like looking at it and being like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, but yes.
I guess if you read some children's books and things, it talks about the earth, dinosaurs were here millions of years ago at such time. I mean, is that maybe where some of the controversy comes from, is that, they're not as old as maybe most are?
Right, so that would be, yes, someone that they see that and they're like, okay, that does not line up with my worldview of what I believe is true, and therefore dinosaurs must not be real. But if they take the time to study it, you can realize, okay, dinosaurs fit perfectly with the Bible, they fit perfectly with the flood, and you don't need to say that dinosaurs aren't real to be a Christian or to believe in a young earth. Yes?
Have they ever gone on with a leash?
With a leash? No. Not that I know of. All right, anybody else? Hi. You lost your coin? Okay, well, we'll have to find that. All right. Well, if we don't have any more questions, feel free to come down and take a look at these, and I can answer more questions down here.